All right, hello and welcome, my friends, to another exciting episode of the Mismatch here on Zoom. This is our 10th show, and to date we have hosted over 50 comedians and over 1,400 viewers. So I am sharing this via Facebook Live, so if you're logged on to Facebook, go to my page and be sure to share the show on your own feed so many people can join us. We have a really special show tonight. Chris and I had talked about this probably into the show. Like, wouldn't it be fun just to get a gathering of some of Philly's veteran comics who really started it all back in the day when you could work full-time as a comic in Philadelphia and make a living, which I find so hard to believe, but it really did happen. Is that true? You could make a living as a comic?
Oh, yeah.
That is amazing.
Not when I started. Yeah, I mean, there were like 6 or 8 shows a week. Can I take this off now? I only wore it to make Jim Daly feel better, okay?
So
no, you could do 6 or 8 shows a week. You could do 5 shows a weekend when it got hot. It was crazy. It was wonderful.
You didn't make any money, though. My first year in comedy in 77, I think it was 77, I made $144. I'm not kidding.
That much.
Well, that's a gross. That's a gross. What more could you ask for?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
That's a gross. What more could you ask for?
oh my gosh.
Yeah, well,
So
it jumped the next year, thankfully.
I did a show, Nick. I did a show once where it was in New York and it paid $25 and it was going to cost me $35 to get there. And I said, the agent, I can't do that. He said, you got to save up for these jobs.
Yeah.
right, so
Teresa, you've made a huge mistake. You opened the door for comedians to start talking.
I know. It's funny because one of the things we learn in a stand-up comedy class is don't open the door with a question unless you have a window to get back in. And I'm like, shit, I have no window. I have no. Anyhow, we're gonna do a really rich meet and greet afterwards. But so Chris and I just had this vision of doing this for a long time. So it's really kind of special and very, very cool to have you guys together tonight. So joining us from North Carolina, please welcome comedian, author, and comedy historian, Mr. Tommy Moore.
Hello.
Hey, Tommy Moore. Tommy Moore.
Please welcome comedian and club owner, Mr. Barney Weiss. Mr.
Barney Weiss.
Thank you.
Joining us all the way from Chicago, please welcome Nick Carmen Cosentino.
Nicky!
Good friend, please welcome comedian and ventriloquist, Mr. Nick Paulo.
Hey!
Returning for his second appearance on the Mismatch Game, please welcome comedian, Mr. Joey Callahan.
Joey!
Hey, everybody! Oh,
Please
yeah.
welcome comedian, magician, and year-round Santa Claus, Mr. Jim Daly.
Hey!
Yay.
Returning for the record, the third appearance on the Mismatch Game, please welcome comedian and Emmy Award-winning media professional, Mr. Grover Silcox.
Yeah.
And finally, my good friend who has been with me through 10 episodes of this crazy show. You've seen him on Comedy Central and the Game Show Network. He's been on Sirius XM and Philly Radio. He also teaches at the DC Improv. Please put your hands together for the host with the most, the star of the Mismatch Game, Mr. Chris Kosha.
Woo! Thank you.
Christopher, that jacket.
Teresa, did you introduce Joey?
I
Did I
did
miss?
introduce Joey.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Do
out
it
of it
again.
tonight.
Yeah.
I'm just stormed. I'm telling you,
I'll
the
do it
low.
again.
Do it, yeah. Go over. No, yeah. These
It's his second time.
second time. I know. That's
my second
anyway.
introduction.
The storm, man. The low pressure system. Something's got me. I'm out of it tonight. But welcome, you guys. I'm excited to have everybody on the show. Teresa, thank you very much for putting this together. Yeah, this is going to be fun. We're going to do it, like I said, it's going to be, or as Teresa said, it's going to be a little bit different tonight. We're going to just have one big, like one three-way. Wait, that sounds wrong. That's one. That's Teresa is the only woman here. I apologize.
Now, you know what? You know
And
you're
don't-
not hip anymore. You know you're not hip anymore when a three-way is a light bulb, okay?
I'm just going to go around the horn and say hi real quick. Nick Carmen. Nick met and is a Philly. Oh, everybody here is like Philadelphia comic, Philadelphia booker, Philadelphia comic booker, Philadelphia. Everybody here has been in the game for a really long time, performing, booking shows. So Nick, you were. I know you're out in Chicago now, but what were your years in Philadelphia?
I started in Chicago, and then I went to California a little bit, and then I went to New York for a long time, and then I got married to a Philadelphia girl. I was in Philly for about, I'm going to say from 86 to 92.
Okay, that would be about like right a little bit after I started. So I remember you and Ron Gallup, another friend of ours, was
Yeah.
Good. Well, welcome back to Philly comedy scene. Going around the horn here the way I got it on the screen. Tommy Moore, we've had you on before. Hi, Tommy.
I started before any one of you. My first paid show was December 8th, 1973.
Oh,
that was
my
before
God.
Comedy Club. That was when we were working for these guys in the supper clubs. If you don't know what this means, think Sopranos and The Godfather. Any night I walked out, I knew half the audience knew where Hoffa was buried, and one guy had the shovel. Okay.
was it my favorite? And I worked for a couple of those guys, out, and not in Philly, but up in Boston. You got paid with a handshake.
Oh yeah.
Hey, great job. Hey, oh my God, I got a couple $100 in my hand. That's a magic.
There was a lot. There was a lot of flopped wallpaper and statues of Venus de Milo with the arm broken, and the owner broke the arms himself just to stay in practice.
Because Venus knew too much.
In those days, the clubs looked tackier than the Poconos.
Yeah. Nick Paulo,
Yes, sir.
you were a Comedy Factory Outlet guy, and that was the other thing too, right? If you were in Philly, there was Comedy Works, Comedy Factory Outlet, and Going Bananas. That was when I started. You had three clubs. You had an allegiance to each one. See, Tommy has a Comedy Factory Outlet. He's flying his colors. Nick has his colors behind him. Barney's club, I'm going to say, and we're going to get to Barney in a second, but Barney was like the Switzerland.
He was
His club, like you could work Factory Outlet, you could work Comedy Works, and those you had to choose.
It didn't bother him.
Barney had the smarts to realize that, hey, I can get everybody if I'm neutral. So it was a Switzerland club. But Nick, you were a Factory Outlet guy. When did you start out?
I started in like June of 1985, but prior to that, I would go to the comedy clubs. I went to Barney's Club. That's where I saw Grover for the first time, Chris Rich, Dan Wilson, Dom Herrera, Vince D'Antona. Trying to think who else. Vinny, the Wild Man D'Angelo. That's where I went first. I never went to the Works. Then I started hanging out at the Comedy Factory Outlet. So,
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it was as Teresa was saying early on, like it was, like that you had the three clubs within walking distance really of each other. And I remember there was a time when the comedy was so hot that the Works and the Factory would sell out, and they'd send them over. They go, well, if you want to walk over to South Street, you can go over to Going Bananas.
Right.
And
same. If Barney's room sold out, they would send him over to the other two.
And if I could tell you why we sent him over to Barney's, if you look up the word mensch in the dictionary, it's Barney Weiss. Barney Weiss was supposed to be a competitor, but when we opened our club, he was the first guy to come and help us paint our sign on our door. That's a nice guy.
No, Barney. Well, anyway, I feel like we're eulogizing Barney. We're staring right at him. It's right here.
And don't forget Barney's cheese board too.
But Barney, cheese board and the slow jazz playing, right? The slow jazz. Barney, we'll jump right over to Barney. You're the next guy on my screen. We're talking about you. So when did you open Going Bananas? What was the year on that?
I think it was 81 or 82.
81 or 82. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So right about when I was starting to come down to the city. So I was hanging out with Todd Glass, who was a Philly staple, because he went to the same high school that I did. So I was coming down. I was too young really to be getting into the clubs, but I was, luckily you guys are pretty lax on your carding policy. I got to see a lot of comics. But yeah, Barney was my first paid gig. Barney's Room was my first paid gig, and I got the gig hanging out in the green room upstairs with Mike Ciccone and a bunch of other comics, and just kind of sitting around BSing and telling jokes. And Barney's like, "Yeah, you're pretty funny. You should come down and do a set." So I did. You were my first paid weekend, Barney.
I actually paid you.
Well, I mean, the check bounced, but theoretically. But boy, yeah, great club, and we can't wait to get Barney on here playing. And Joey Callahan, you're the next man on my screen.
Hey.
Joey, how are you, sir? You and I started out probably about the same time, maybe, right?
I was 89.
Okay. So you came in a little bit after me, yeah. But
Yeah.
and which club did you start with? Where did you start?
I was a comedy works, guys. I did do Barney's Room when it was at Third and South. Was it there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I did that a couple times, and Barney had a Mexican restaurant in King of Prussia.
Casa Maria.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Barney would give me great tips while yelling at his son Billy. Billy, we need more ice.
Oh, that's hilarious. Guys, that's right. That was the Casa Maria. Man, there was so many. Everybody that had a banquet hall or an empty room. You remember Paul Solari had I think it was what was it at the time? Like Howard Johnson's on the corner of 202. And
oh my God, I remember that terrible one.
Oh my God, some guy came up on stage and tried to punch me at that place. And it was with Big Daddy Graham, who was worried that it would affect album sales. Yeah,
King of Prussia Comedy Club.
King of Prussia Comedy Club. Was that Paul's room?
Strapati. That was Strapati.
Strapati across the street.
And in the
George
motel, right?
George Washington
Motor
Motel.
Lodge, which is now a Walmart. So, it's stayed about parallel in class. Jim Daly, you're the next man on my screen. Jim, when did you jump into Philly comedy?
Well, I was watching at the jailhouse. I went to the jailhouse probably every Saturday night for a couple of years. I watched Barney grow up. I watched Ben, Grover, Clay, Steve. You mentioned it. I mean, everybody who started in Philly, Mike Egan, Myron Young, some of the great acts that came through there. That was probably 1978. I actually started doing comedy around 80. I met probably my best friend in comedy at the Main Point in Bryn Mawr, and he's on the panel tonight. His name is Tommy Moore, and it's kind of going from there. I was a Comedy Factory Outlet guy, hung out there most of the time. Always walked over to Barney's, probably once a month. I think I was at Barney's. We had a good time. That was the golden age, right?
Oh man, it was. And there was that what was that restaurant under the parking garage that like everybody would end up kind of hanging out in? What was it?
Was it Spats under the Comedy Factory outlet there?
No,
That
there
one?
was Spats. There was Society Hill Hotel, which was a big hangout.
Right.
And then, but then there was like a little restaurant, like a cheesesteak place open under the parking garage right around the corner from Comedy Works too.
Yeah.
Grover would
You
know
remember,
that.
right, Nick? You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like there were like 3 hangouts. But the Society Hill Hotel was like where the headliners would go because you had to have some money. What's that?
There was
They were
another
housed.
disco next to that restaurant, that the cheese steak place. If you remember.
Oh, that was right. There was one that was upstairs.
Oh, maybe
it
it's a different one, maybe.
There was. Oh, I know what you're talking. That's right. It was a disco one. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, now
Every other comedy club was a disco at one point.
Yeah. Right.
They all had mirror balls.
I remember. Anyway, I won't go into it. We're gonna wait till the end here.
I want to know, was the Jailhouse the first showcase that was put together by local comics, and that's where you guys all grew? Because that was in '78. This is the phenomenon that I've always been interested in. In Chicago, in '76 and '77, '78 was our showcases. It was the Comedy Womb, great name for a comedy club, and the Comedy Cottage. And that all started in just after the mid '70s, the same time that it was going on in California with the Comedy Store, and in Boston, and in New York with Catch a Rising Star, and the Improv. And it all started, and they weren't connected, but they all started in that time frame, 75,
Right.
76, 77, 78. Those
Yeah,
4
ask
years
Barney and
from there.
Grover about that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
They
bounce
would
right over
have
to
the
Grover. Grover's the last man on my screen here.
Yes.
And Grover, so Ed, talk to that a little bit, because that was you were a part. I know you and Tommy were and Barney were a part of the Jailhouse, and Jim, of course, was going down there. But that was kind of the beginning, right? I know that people talk about Aunt Minnie's. Was that another joint?
Grandma Minnie's. was
Grandma Minnie's.
a deli on Chestnut Street between, I think it was second and third, or third and fourth. First one to open an open mic on Wednesday nights. And I'll never forget a young Jerry Seinfeld coming up to me and saying, "I like your dog jokes." Even to this day, I tell people Seinfeld likes my material. You know. And who else was it? Who was? Oh, he was Hall. Rich Hall.
Rich
He was
Hall.
performing there.
Originally from Philadelphia, yes.
Rich used to do that a lot. Rich would go, he was a venturous, Rich Hall. He would go not only out by you guys, he came all the way to Chicago. And this was way before he went to California. He was a very adventurous, traveling kind of guy. So it doesn't surprise me that he's an hour and a half away in Philadelphia.
Yeah. He was kind of an itinerant personality, you know. He'd go from place to place. I think he was from North Carolina or somewhere originally, I think.
Yeah.
But, you know, he went on and did quite well. I mean, he was on The Tonight Show and not necessarily the
And
news.
SNL, Saturday Night Live.
Right.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
when we talk after the game, remind me. I have a funny Rich Hall story that was one of those, like, you know, don't judge a situation before you know the big picture kind of a thing with Rich Hall. That was kind of a life lesson, you know. That took about 8 years to learn.
I wanted to say,
Yeah.
in 2000, I did the Edinburgh Comedy Festival in Scotland, and I was there for a month. And the biggest show in Scotland at the time during the comedy festival was Rich Hall.
I
Wow.
believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
I'm like,
He was
holy-
huge at one time. He was big.
Oh yeah, with Sniglets. Remember he had
but he's
Sniglets,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Forget about
So-
Sniglets.
Teresa, I just want to jump to Teresa real quick. A producer's question: is Mike on?
Mike is on, but I don't know if we have sound. Mike, do we have sound?
I don't know. Do we have sound?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Hey,
So is Mike going to be a contestant or is he going to be a panelist?
He is going to be a panelist.
All right, then let's go say hi to Mike. Mike Egan. There he is. He's in the lower left-hand corner of my screen.
Okay.
Mike, there you go. Mike is calling us from a boat.
Yeah. I'm not good with this technology. I
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing that.
Yeah.
Mike,
why don't we all?
so we were just kind of relating while you were getting yourself set up there. When did you were pretty much always a New York guy, right? You weren't based out of Philly ever, were you?
Are you kidding? Grover and I were both sixes.
Well, wait. So now I see.
.1. You had the little decimal there.
What did that mean?
Go
What
way
does that mean?
Oh, you don't know, do you?
No,
Mike had his own radio show here in Philly.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
When was this, Mike? So now I'm like, because I always put you in New York because I think that's where I first met you. Maybe like with guys like Saccone and some of the other New York people, but I never.
I started out at the jailhouse across from the Bulletin back in 1979. I did overnights at WPEN. I was the overnight guy.
Oh my gosh, WPEN, that brings
Yeah, I was there for about a year and a half. Then I went to New York. Yeah.
I probably
with Sam
listened to
and
you
Jim
and
Toll.
never realized that I was listening to you because I listened to all the overnight stuff. Well, welcome. So that's funny. Like I always just associated you with New York. I just figured you were in New York.
Yeah, he lived
Hey, Mike, get in the picture. All we see is your hair.
Yeah, Mike, we got a lot of. I like the color you've chosen for the living room wall, but there you go. There we go. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Yeah, we got Mike in his recliner.
Yes, I am. I got
Mike,
my dog in there.
There you go. Oh, look at that. There we go. So, Mike, you're gonna be we have the largest panel that we've ever had. So, Teresa, tell us what we're gonna do next here, because I know we're gonna play around with everybody, talk to everybody. It's gonna become a cocktail party. So, if you got a cocktail, my goodness, fresh in your cocktail now. I am.
There's already a question in the Q&A if you want to tackle that. Otherwise, I'll hand it off.
Before we jump into the Q&A, I thought I would kick it off, and hopefully it won't be too much of a technical distraction. I wanted to show a little video clip that I found of Comedy Factory Outlet from the late 80s.
Wow.
Quick share screen.
Oh boy. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I hope it's Chris.
Get ready to feel old.
Best-known comedians were getting their starts. David Brenner and Bill Cosby. They had to go to New York to their start. But because of what got going here 10 years ago, local comedians really have a chance to make a career that begins in Philadelphia. And then they're loyal to the city, too.
When I started in comedy, there was nobody, obviously, who was able to give up the day job. But there was probably about 40 working comics that would do comedy full-time in this area. And that's quite an accomplishment, since there's probably only, say, 500 across the entire country who make a living at it.
Nobody here makes any apologies for the fact that blue humor is really popular in Philadelphia, not only throughout the whole thing. What have you learned about Philadelphia audiences as a result of that?
They will come out and pay money to see something they can't see on television.
Honesty compels me to point out to you that with the exception have been fully edited for morning broadcast.
People change on the miniature golf course, right? Someone you love, somebody you know, somebody you've trusted for years becomes an idiot on the miniature golf course, right?
You guys don't pace anymore. Before you would go on, you would pace up and down, study the material.
Get newer shoes then. Lethargy. It's called just get used to it.
All the irreverence of these comedians notwithstanding, it's wonderful for me to note that today, City Council of Philadelphia came up with an official citation honoring them for their 10 years in the business, ending with the words, "Best wishes for a future filled with continued good humor and great success."
Thanks, sweetie.
All right, now. I
the
got
That's great.
my friend.
That's
I have to
wonderful.
tell-
Wow.
What a
gotta tell
shithole
you
that
a
was,
story.
huh?
I got to tell you
You
a
guys have not
story about.
aged at all.
I got to tell you a
That one
story
scene-
about that. Okay.
That one scene that had Grover and Kenny in it, that was you in the background, right?
Yeah, and there's
And
also
Tim Daly was at the front side.
yes,
So you have
Right.
four other people on here in that video. That's pretty
yes.
cool.
It was
Yep.
such a great find. You believe me? I was Googling trying to find something. I'm like, this is a gem.
The story about that clip. I got to tell you a story about that clip. The woman in the clip was Liz Matt, who was on AM Philadelphia for 10 years. And she was the one who really catapulted us. All right, here's the story. When we first started at the jailhouse, there were 11 of us comics. We called ourselves the Front 11. We did 5 minutes apiece, and we got no audience. I mean, we got no reservations, nothing. Clay Heery, who you saw her interviewing, was brilliant. He was brilliant. One day he told us, the 11 comedians, he said, stand in front of the club in a line and make it look like we're customers waiting to go in. So we stood out there and people walked by and said, oh, there's a line for this place. Maybe it's good. And they got in line too. And we had 20, 30, 40. When we got to 50, we opened up the door and let them in. Now, at that time, we were charging $1 and we couldn't get customers. Liz Matt, God bless her. Liz Matt put us on TV and boom, the next thing you know, we had a crowd. We raised the price to $1.99. Oh, we were making a fortune at $1.99. And then at the year anniversary, we decided to do half price, okay? And we put a big ad in the paper, half price. And then we realized that half of $1.99 was 99.5 cents. How could we get change of $1? Clay Heery said, we'll get hacksaws. And we sawed pennies in half. And we gave everybody a half a penny, and there's still half a pennies running around Philadelphia, wondering where they came from. They came from the Comedy Factory outlet.
Yeah. And Liz Matt was part of Channel 3, right? Liz Matt was part of Channel 3, and everybody there at Channel 3, they all loved us at the Comedy Factory outlet. Maury Povich was there. Remember he was Channel 3? Steve Baskerville. He probably had half a dozen or a dozen comedians on his show with Liz. I mean, they were always the best. And I have to thank Grover Silcox because he and Clay were kind of the catapults for getting us into those TV stations.
Yeah.
Right, Grover?
Well, I'm not sure I can take credit for that. I think comedy was hot, was getting hot. All of us contributed to that momentum, and that's what drew the cameras. With Liz, of course, being the catalyst that we needed. So
yeah.
Can I tell you a Grover story?
Let me ask. Go ahead, Tommy.
Grover,
We'll keep starting on cue. We'll keep starting at the same time.
Keep hanging into each other. That's great.
I want to hang on for 1 second, Tom, because that's what happened. What has happened with Liz? I don't. It's not a name I recognize now, but I knew AM Philadelphia. Is she still out there? Is she still?
Yeah, she's retired.
She's retired. Okay.
Liz moved to Florida, but right now, this week, she's in Cape May because she has a second home in Cape May. But she's a sweetheart. She always treated us great. If it wasn't for her, I don't know where we would have been. So if you're out there, God bless you, Liz.
Who's Liz?
Yeah, we should.
Liz Matt. Liz Matt was one of the co-hosts for 10 years on AM Philadelphia.
With Wally Kennedy.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're saying she put you guys on the map.
Right. She helped.
Yeah.
Now,
Teresa, we should see if we can get her on the show. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Even if she just pops in just to,
She's
she's my Facebook friend. She's on Grover's Facebook friends and one of Tommy's.
I would love to have it. That'd be awesome.
Would love
because I love that. I love this, the history stuff. So, Tommy, now you had a story.
Because Grover will never say this about himself. Grover is the quickest mind of all of us. Okay? Yep. I mean, he start with the crowd. He's incredible. I'll show you how quick a mind he had. When we were just 11 guys doing 5 minutes apiece, and we made like $10. Okay? Grover one night had laryngitis. He couldn't talk, but he wasn't going to give up his 10 minutes. His $10. So he wrote a bit where he smoked a cigarette, he drank a little bit of whiskey, and he pointed to the sound man to play his tape. And he did that over and over for 5 minutes. Didn't say a word. And the more he did it, the funnier it was. Now, you want to tell the other half of the story with Kimmy and Jimmy?
You can
Grover?
better than me. I actually forgot that part of it until you mentioned it.
All right. So here's the part of the story. He had this cassette tape that had his music. He would smoke a cigarette, drink a little alcohol, point, music would play. He would drink some more, point, 5 minutes, okay? One night he gave it to the sound man. Sound man put the cassette in. Now, Kimmy, he had 2 little kids, Kimmy and Jimmy. They were like 3 and 4, okay? And they go to play. He takes a sip of the alcohol. He smokes a little bit of a cigarette. He points to the sound man, and instead of music, everybody heard, Jimmy's fooling around with Daddy's tape recorder. Jimmy's fooling around with Daddy's tape recorder. That was the end of it. It was over.
Yeah. Timmy and Jimmy had just cashed in their 401ks. How long ago it's been?
How'd you handle it, bro? How'd you handle that? Do you remember it?
You just keep going and act like, yeah, I planned that. Just like the whole bit was unplanned. You don't give you don't give any clue to the fact that you're panicking on the inside. It's like any heckler starts to get to you, you try to pass it off as part of the show.
Ah, that's so beautiful.
It was a great story, man.
Oh my God! Who is it? Who was the sound guy over there? Was
Tony Norwood at the time at the Jail House.
Okay. Okay.
He was an artist.
What song is that? It's like do.
It was the original
Peter
song
Gunn.
was a is a sax player, Tom Scott, the Tom Scott piece.
Okay.
And years later, I went to Peter Gunn.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's one.
I decided to change the act. So I always tell people I wrote every word of that opening. So.
Oh my goodness. Oh, Teresa, do we have questions?
We have a question from Ginger. Her question's for Tommy. Who are all the photos in the background?
Everybody I ever met, performed with, did PR for the Comedy Factory outlet. Everybody from Steve Allen to Soupy Sales to Jackie Vernon to David Brenner. Anybody who's in comedy, we had at one time or another. It was incredible. We had at the Comedy Factory, we had Tim Allen. As a matter of fact, okay. Tim Allen was at the bar, and he did this bit about tools. And Grover Silcox said, it'd be a good idea if you did a show where you were like the tool man. And 5 years later, that show was on TV.
Wow.
That came from Grover.
I haven't heard a word from him. Welcome to show business.
Keep putting your address out. I'm sure he's got a check somewhere for you.
Yeah. Which Grover was it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's too
God.
funny.
So take us back to the 80s. And I remember attending comedy shows back then, never thinking I'd ever actually be on stage. What were the primary clubs? Like, what were the clubs? Where were they? What were they? I know there's one above the Middle East, right?
Yeah, that was Comedy Works.
Philadelphia in the mid 80s, the big clubs for me, well, I was working Barney's Club from the early 80s, but was the Comedy Factory outlet and the Comedy Room. And the genius thing that as a working comic already by then, 6 years or 7 years, was working the outlet, because he got into trouble with the fire marshal, and he said, they told him, take seats out, and he said, screw it, put theater seats in there. That was brilliant, I think.
Yeah.
And it worked so well. And for us as comedians, I used to love working that room for that reason. you love working rooms for all different reasons. Barney, because it's intimacy, and the Comedy Factory, and I'm talking about the Outlet, was like a theater, and the Works was like, had a balcony and a peanut gallery, and all three of those clubs were magnificent.
Yeah.
As working
jammed every weekend.
Yeah, that was it. It was crazy how, because I started out as like a guy like on this, I think we talked about this before, but I stood on the steps at the Comedy Works directing people. Ramon Harris had the same job later on. I think we were talking about it last week, but my job was please stay to your left. Going up, there will be people coming back down on the right-hand side. Tonight's show is $15. If you have exact change, we would appreciate it. So that was my little spiel that I just repeated over and over. And here's how good comedy was. People would tip you if you could like get them in. You know, if you could, we're sold out right now. You know, you get that glad handshake, $20, $10. Well, if you can do anything, and I go up and talk to Tony and go, remind me, I owe you $5, so that you just nod your head, and we'd split it up later. But it was crazy how packed it would get, right? Like it was just the club. I remember when Leno would come into the Comedy Works, and there would be just a line out onto Chestnut Street. And I remember him leaning out the window and dumping popcorn down onto the crowd. He goes, hey, what the hell are you people waiting for? You know, and he just dumps a thing of popcorn down onto him. But it was great. And then you guys over at the factory had Andrew Dice Clay first before he was Andrew Dice Clay.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And then when he became Andrew Dice Clay, I think one of his last club appearances before he started doing theaters was at the factory, right?
Yeah. Now I'll tell you.
I remember I had
Go ahead.
I remember I had a 2-seater car, and my wife used to do the tickets at the Comedy Factory outlet. Good old Marion. Hi, Marion. And we were driving down through Center City, and at the time he was Andrew Dice Clay, with all the comics were put at I think it's called the Penn Hotel over on Market Street. And we were driving down Market Street, and I saw Andrew pointing out to get a taxi, and I pulled over, and he sat in the back of my little CRX Honda, Marion sitting on one side, I'm driving the other, and he's like scrunched up in the back, just like, and he wasn't a big guy. I mean, he wasn't a small guy, he was a tall guy, and just scrunched up in the back going, hey, okay, this is great, thank you, Mary, let's, and drove him to the show. It was just funny that when you think back on, geez, who would have thought, right? So yeah, that's my little story with Andrew Dice Clay.
That's funny.
If you want to hear stories of stars at the Comedy Fest, big stars, okay, two stories. Number one, we were sold out one night. Car pulls up, guy gets out, says, can we buy 4 tickets? Sorry, no, we're sold out. He goes back to the car, he comes back. He said, if you can get the 4 of us in, my friend will do a free set. Now, we're a little club in Philadelphia on a corner down an alley, and we said, who's your friend? And he said, Robin Williams.
Yeah,
we went over to the car, we looked in, it was Robin Williams. We found 4 seats. Robin Williams wouldn't come in because he knew that if everybody saw him, the show was over. It was over. So we hid him in a side room. He played foosball with us. And we told the other comedians, instead of doing your regular time, 15, 30, 45, do 10 minutes apiece. And they did 10 minutes apiece. And then, Dennis Johnson was the MC. Said, ladies and gentlemen, what's an album? Comes in, and here he is, Robin Williams. And everybody went, yeah, right. And it was Robin Williams. They went nuts. He enjoyed himself so much. He did a second show. And the next day, everybody I knew was mad at me because I didn't tell him Robin Williams was going to be there. We didn't know. Now, the second story, we had Soupy Sales there. Again, he didn't want to come into the room because he knew if everybody saw him, the show would be over because they would mob him. So we kept him in a little side room, but he had to go to the bathroom. There were no bathrooms downstairs, and he couldn't come upstairs to go to the men's room. So I went into the kitchen and I got a pot and I gave it to him and I said, here, do what you got to do. Okay. Now, Will Neary wanted so much to be on that show, but he was booked somewhere else. All right. And I said, I got to get Will Neary some kind of souvenir. So I gave Soupy a black magic marker. I cleaned out the pot and Soupy put on the side, to Will, my pot is your pot. And to this day, Will Neary has that on his mantle.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. You know, I think I've mentioned this before. I got and that right there is a Soupy Sales autograph pie box. Right there.
Oh, great.
That was from with Chris Rich, who's not here. Chris and I did a Philly magazine, Best of Philly, and it was a pie. We were judging pie. I think that was from Ponzio's, and Soupy. They had a picture of Soupy with a pie on his face, of course, but an autographed pie box from Soupy. Yeah, that was the drop-in, the celebrity pop-in. It was awesome. It happened a lot, you know, like it would. Because Philly was, you know, close enough. They would film stuff. What was Robin in town for? Was he filming something?
He was going to every comedy club he could to prepare for an HBO special.
Okay.
And that's why he wanted to get on stage. He did like an hour and 10 minutes, twice.
He's looking for material.
Yeah, I had to follow him. I had to follow him once because he popped in. It was a weekend. He popped in at the outlet. And talking about Dennis Johnson, he was the MC of the show. Somebody was the opener, and I was closing the show. And here comes here comes Robin Williams, you know. And I go, wait a minute, I gotta follow him, you know. And thank God for Dennis Johnson, because he was a great buffer in between. Because Robin did about 20 minutes, and he got off. And then I had to close the show, and Dennis did some bit. It was a bad bit too, and but it settled the audience. It settled the audience down. When I got up, I had a great show. So
hey, Nick, it may be a bad bit, but it drives my girlfriend crazy.
Can you curl your tongue?
Some memories never go away.
Hey, Chris.
You know, there's people that you just remember like a chunk of their set. Like, it drives my girlfriend, and I have no idea what the rest of the bit is. I have no idea where it went from there, but that phrase will be stuck in my head for the rest of my life. It may be the last thing I utter when I die. It drives my. Why did he say that? I don't know.
It was his helicopter bit.
That's what it was. Who called it? Who called it? Who got it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might have been that bit that he did that turned off the audience. I swear to God, they mellowed out. They were in a frenzy. Robin Williams just walked off the freaking stage, and now Dennis, he must have did 5 minutes, but he ended with that helicopter thing, you know. And it just, there was like, what's Lenny say? 250 people in oil painting. You know, they were just so quiet.
Yeah, I think Robin was doing that bit in California afterwards, wasn't he?
Well, there were definitely some guys in Philly who, you know, and I'm sure this is with every open stage, is where they were just, that was it. They were staying in open stage land. And I can't remember, there was a guy at the Works, who, and I wish I could remember, Reggie, maybe, who used to do Love Boat. That show's so dirty, they should call it Lust Boat. And then was it Reggie Murray? Who said Reggie Murray?
I said Reggie Murray. Yeah.
Reggie Murray. Was it Reggie, Nick?
It could have been.
It could, yeah. I think he had like cards, right? He would hold up the cards. Yeah. And again, that bit will be stuck in my head for the rest of my life. But there's those bits that people have that you can't forget. And Nick, somebody mentioned Vinny D'Angelo.
Yeah.
Vinny, I can't eat M&Ms without thinking of Vinny D'Angelo. Because Vinny would do a bit. Barney, you remember that, right? The bit with the M&Ms.
I remember his Halloween bit.
His Halloween bit, right? It was M&Ms, right? He would.
Well, the one that got me was he pulled out an apple with an entire razor in there. And he said, tell your kids to watch out for this because it'll really hurt them. That was the one I liked.
And
so the
teaching
M&Ms, I just remember he would chew up the M&Ms and then he'd read the package and said, like, send back, if you're not satisfied. And he would spit them into an envelope and he'll lick the envelope with this like chocolate covered tongue. He is there were so many characters and you just wonder like where they are now. I know Vinny, but
he never turned it off either. I stayed with him a couple of nights because I was putting a door up. He always found his mansions to stay in.
Yes.
And so he stayed in the top of he was staying in the top of the mansion, and he wanted a door at the stairway because the people live downstairs. So I'm a carpenter, so I put him a stair, and I stayed overnight with him. That is, hanging out with Vinny D'Angelo was a treat because what you saw on the stage is what he continued throughout his whole day. He had these little demons at the window, and they were in a cigar box. And one of them's name was Pancho, another one, Lucifer. And why he had those demons in the window is because every time the Phillies played ball, they were supposed to bet against the Phillies because he hated the Phillies. And so he had these little demons. And one time he was driving me somewhere because I was staying with him. And I said, let's go here. And he goes, no, that means I have to go all the way downstairs. I said, so what? He said, I just took a shower. I said, so what? He said, I'm going to sweat if I have to come back upstairs.
Right. I drove Vinny. I think I was in that attic, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, were you there when he had the exotic bird that he adopted? Somebody.
Oh, I forgot about the bird.
Yes.
Wait, so wait,
the bird's
did he
name
adopt
was,
that from?
The bird's name was Lenny.
Yeah. And the bird, he had to take the bird to the vet because the bird was coughing incessantly. He was really worried about the bird, and the vet couldn't figure it out. And finally, he goes, "Wait a minute, do you smoke?" Of course, Vinny was like a chain smoker.
Yeah.
Just imitating you.
I remember that happening, and he took him here's a Vinny story. Here's a Vinny story. Clay booked this room. We didn't know what it was. The show was Vinny, me, and Adrian Tulch from New York. We pull up. It's an urban cowboy bar. They got a mechanical bull. They had a clown with an oberhorn, decided to play the horn on every one of our punchlines, okay? Vinny goes up there. People, they got cowboy hats on, and Vinny goes up, nothing. We knew it was going to be nothing because they didn't want comedy. They wanted the mechanical bull. Vinny went up, nothing. A guy with a cowboy hat came up on stage, put his arm around Vinny, and said, "That's enough, okay, buckaroo?" And how they bring me? I said to Adrian, I said, "We won't make Vinny go back up as the MC. I'll introduce you when we'll get out of here." I went up. I think I got 3 laughs. Adrian, God bless her. Adrian knew how to work the crowd. She did every Ponderosa joke. She did every Rogers joke. She made him laugh. We got paid. We got out of there. Now we went to the diner for comfort food because we had all bombed and we needed comfort food. Now, the minute we walk into the diner with Adrian Tulch, the Semitic question, the Semitic has gone up about 300%, okay? Now, Adrian sits down and she orders bacon and eggs. When the bacon comes, she looks up at heaven and says, "See, Grandma, I'm eating bacon." And she puts her elbow down, the fork flips around, up in the air, stabs her in the chest. And I said, you may be able to calm a room full of buckaroos, but don't fool around with grandma.
Yeah. So that show was you, Adrian, and
Vinny.
Vinny D'Angelo.
And Vinny,
you can't get a more diversified show than that, man.
No.
Yeah.
That's like 3 different kind of acts there right there.
Oh, I got a question. Whatever happened to George Hamate and Sam Hollis?
George Hamate is a friend of mine on Facebook. He's still around. He's got a family.
Is he with the Funny 11, George, or not? But Sam was, right? Sam
Hollis?
Yeah.
Sam Hollis was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He shops where America shops.
What?
Hey, one of his lines was, "Hey, where'd you get that shirt? You must shop where America shops."
George Sharp, I remember him around that time.
Yeah,
George
he had
Sharp.
an accident.
Whatever happened to that guy?
He was in
He
an
had an
accident, right? Driving back across country.
He still alive, but
yeah.
He got hurt badly?
Yeah.
Yeah, brain damage and
no.
spinal cord injuries and.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a Jim Daly story? Because he won't stay as soon as okay. Jim Daly was the first guy, one of the first guys to have an offshoot room. Okay, not a Friday, not a Saturday. I think it was a Tuesday night at a place called the Chet Wind. Wednesday? Okay, it was a Chet Wind, which was a high-rise, 12 stories. I think there were 40 apartments on each story. There was a built-in audience, okay?
The basement of the Chet Wind.
Now, because the Chet Wind had a restaurant, okay? And that's where he put his show. Now, he calls me one night because he knows I live somewhere in the vicinity. He said, my headliner didn't show up. Can you get here? I said, hold on to the crowd. Don't start the show until you see me, okay? What he didn't know is I lived in the building. I lived on the first floor. 30 seconds later, I was there. I said, Jim, I would have been here sooner, but the elevator was slow.
He came in his tuxedo.
I think we lost Mike and Faye.
We lost Mike, and Mike had his hand raised, so I was waiting for you guys to take a pause because I thought he might have a question. But I have
a
question from the audience. I have, how many of you performed at Comedy Cabaret at Poco's in Doylestown? This is from Bob, who was one of our contestants. I used to tend bar there in the 90s and got to see some great acts there. So how many of you performed at the Cabaret at Poco's?
I did it once.
Oh, yeah.
I did it a couple times.
Many times.
Doyle's, I did it many times.
Yeah, that was always a great room. That was like
it still exists.
It still exists, and I think that it is probably what I'm going to say like the longest running room in Philly. You know, like because it's just.
I think it works.
Oh, Bristol.
Yeah, Bristol I think is longer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah, that's going to be a photo finish on that one. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty close, but.
Yeah.
But they're both. I mean, man, that Poco's room
is awesome.
Yeah, that room is just nice. It's like the perfect feel for a comedy club, right?
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
Low. It's like the best comedy clubs are ones you walk in, you go, should we all be in this room together? Like, is this a fire hazard? Like they're saying, right? Like every room, every best room you've ever worked, there is that kind of a feel of this might also be a fire hazard.
Yeah,
I think the audience that came there were comedy audiences.
Yes.
They really had a strong appreciation for whatever was happening and watching the talent that was, because that's the other thing in that room there. I always worked with some really good people.
Yeah.
And at the end too, you never know when a breakout improv show is going to happen. Like if Ronnie Gallup was there and Scarpati always wanted to do improv, but Rich Gagliardi at the time, Julia Scotti now, at the time, if they were in that room and they break out to an improv group, and the people got to see that too. not only the three-thing comic sequence, but an improv show at the end of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Good
true.
room, great room.
You
And
said,
good
Nick,
food downstairs.
yeah, Nick, you said breakout. I thought you were going to start, break out a fight like happened at Mitchell's like every other week.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Table 12, come up to the buffet. Table 12.
What a great room, though, right?
Oh, I loved it. Joe and Carol Donata, God bless them.
I had a
great
breakout
guy. He was
fight.
a gentleman. He was a gentleman, and he
A
just
sweetheart.
He loved comedy, and his wife did too, and his kids worked there too, right? Joey,
His daughter. I know his
Yeah.
daughter worked there. Yeah.
he was the owner, him and his wife. But,
Right.
Yeah.
And he was a character, boy.
He was great, wasn't he?
That's for the books. Guys,
Yeah, they tried to. Mike Doherty tried to bring comedy back there now, but it doesn't have the same feel as it did, for sure. And I don't think they'll do it anymore. I think he was doing like as almost like an open stage night there for a little bit. But I mean, when it was Mitchell's again, like you had the wave going too.
Right.
You just had like everybody was interested in comedy. Everybody wanted to go see it. That room in Cherry Hill, talking about Andy's rooms, that room in Cherry Hill at the Hyatt, which is so weird, like, right? Because that room at its height was incredible, right? And then it just like they I don't know, the hotel, and this happens all the time, right? And it's a pain in the ass for the bookers. The hotel sees you bringing in 300 people every weekend. They go, why do we need them? We'll bring in a dueling pianos act, and we'll still get, and nobody comes because they're coming for the comedy. So then you lose that momentum, because then they tried to put another club back in the Hyatt, and beautiful club, did like that. I mean, they spent so much money on that. What was it? What was the name of that room?
Rascals.
Rascals. It was
Rascals,
beautiful. It should have had.
It was a great.
But the hotel had just interrupted that momentum. And I don't think that Rascals ever. I don't know. I mean, Joey, did you work there a lot, or?
I didn't work a lot there. I did work Rascals, and that was towards the death rattle of Rascals as a comedy club chain. But I did, and it wasn't the same. It was weird. It's just like I did the show that was Mitchell's that's now, I don't even remember the name of it. And it was like you walked into what was Mitchell's, and you go, "My God, there's a lot of ghosts walking around here."
Yeah.
It just you couldn't get lightning twice in a bottle,
No, it's funny how just little thing. I remember the Funny Bone in Pittsburgh there was a little strip mall in an old train station, or I don't know what, it was like they converted an industrial area. That place was packed all the time. Crazy lines going down the hall. That speak about people doing pop-ins. Chris Rock came in and did a set there because he was out filming a movie in Pittsburgh. Just right, boom, unbelievable. They get an opportunity to move literally across an alley get their own new building, and it never succeeded, because it was like people were like birds going back to where the feeder used to be, and they're like, oh, it's not here. I guess they're not doing comedy anymore. If they turned 180 degrees, they would have been looking at the building where the new club was, but it just never took off. And it's that thing, like, you just go, oh my God, you don't want to interrupt that flow.
This was the what club? Funny Bone?
Funny Bone in Pittsburgh.
Later.
Yeah. But they did go across the street from the stadium eventually, in that it wasn't a strip mall, it was in the middle of the mall.
Yeah.
And then they had a room kind of like Scarpetti's Hyatt in Monroeville.
Right.
That was a really successful club. So both the one that, when I remember the first white one, it was a white building, right, Chris, that you're talking about off of 41 is the standalone building.
Yeah, no, that wasn't. I never worked that. It was when it moved into the mall. Was when I started working it, and then you doubled up with Monroeville. So I never worked.
Do you remember the original Funny Bone?
I don't. No, not that one. No.
Like in the middle of nowhere, but packed.
Right.
I got a question from the audience, and it's from Lisa Schwartz, and I'm not surprised Lisa asked this because Lisa's from New York. She says Philly is really close to New York City. Did you guys go back and forth at all? There were so many clubs in the 70s, 80s, 90s that were low key before they went commercial. So did you guys travel back and forth between Philly and New York?
Some did. Kevin Hart did.
Yeah.
This was my club. This was
Kevin
my
Hart,
club in New
Kevin Hart used
York.
to go there all the time.
So I would do it all the time. I would go down to Philly and Barney's Club. I used to work Barney's Club in the early 80s a lot. I remember. Remember, Barn?
Yeah. There's a lot of people did that. Right.
Yeah, I know. But you got a lot of New York guys, too, that came down to do your club. Mike Reynolds did it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Mike Reynolds. Mike Reynolds.
Mike Ciccone. Mike Ciccone, I remember used to do your
I'll
club.
never order Chinese without saying Chua.
I can't go to, I can't, I hear, every time I see a bike rental place, I go,
Right,
Mike Reynolds.
exactly. Mike Reynolds.
Yeah, a lot of people did. Ciccone was Philly based, and I was just talking to Teresa about Mike, and but he went up to New York and would come back and forth. But I remember talking to like Steve Young, and he would say like Philly was the closest place where New York acts could make money. Was the closest place they could get a paid weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when I started out, you know, like I said, working the door, working the steps at the Comedy Works, you saw everybody coming through because it was a paid gig for New Yorkers. Philly guys going back up to New York, it was a little tougher nut to crack. You had to kind of spend more time up there, like anything, right? You have to kind of be there before they're like, oh, okay, we'll accept you. And I mean, I did it for a little bit. I know Joey does it now and has done it before, going up to some of the New York clubs, but it's a lot of like hanging out and kind of like, you know, it's like they want to, it's like anywhere, right? They like, I don't know, you trust this guy? I don't know, right? And then finally they kind of pull you in and you start getting some stage time.
Mike Egan was the first guy from Comedy Factory out that I know of that started to go to New York for a steady gig. And then he actually became the manager of Catch a Rising Star.
No, it was EMC. I don't
MC.
think Mr. Barn. He was the MC.
With the MC, I thought he became the manager.
I don't know that part. I know Mike a long time, but I don't remember him being the manager. But it could have been before I got to New York. You know, when I got to New York, he was emceeing. It was between him, Bill Maher, and Adrian Tolsch, and Larry Ambrose. Those were the four MCs. And then Bill Schiff came in a little later, and then there was five of them. I wish Mike was here now.
Is Mike still on? He would know.
No, he dropped off. It's funny because he had his hand raised, and I was going to call on him to. I was going to actually ask him if he was in Catholic school because he's like the only.
I'm going to tell you something. The MC at Rising Star wielded a lot of power because they put the show together, who they wanted to see. And everybody got a chance, but you might get a chance at 2 o'clock in the morning, too.
Yeah.
If you were a regular there. But they had regulars, you know, and then people would bounce in. I remember Robin Williams doing improv with Gilbert Gottfried, you know, at like 12 o'clock at night and just blowing the room away. Good night, anybody who's going to follow that, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning. So there's a lot of people that did that at Catch. It was just a great club to see. Richie Belzer came in all the time. Sandra, what's her name?
Bernhardt.
Bernhardt. Rita Rudner. They would all come in if they were in town, or if they were making a movie in town. And it was great learning place, Catch, I think.
It was. I worked there. I was because Louis Ferranda had passed me, and so I was getting some spots there. It was a really interesting club to work. It was like,
well, you're a Catch comic, actually. You know, I know what kind of comedy you do, Chris, and you are very much quick-witted, play with the audience, have your own bits, kind of mix it all together. You know, you're a master at that, and that's what they liked at Catch.
Right. It would be helpful if they still existed.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Damn it. That's how it always happens. I have to tell you a funny story. You mentioned Rita Rudner. And Rita was wonderful, hilarious. And I had such a crush on Rita Rudner.
Oh yeah. Who
And
didn't?
yeah, right.
She's Mrs. Maisel. You ever watch it? The Marvelous.
Oh, I
Mrs.
haven't.
Maisel?
Yeah, no. Everybody tells me I haven't.
The
Like,
woman
it's on
that
my
plays
list.
her reminds
you
me
gotta
of Rita
watch
Rudner.
it.
Yeah, no, I've heard it's great, and it's like on my. I just finished Schitt's Creek, so that's next. But so she was at Comedy Works. She had to go back to the hotel, and I'm like, I'll drive her. I'll drive her back. You know, and I had a '72 Chevelle. It's a piece of shit. So I asked my friend Mitch Goldman. I don't know if you guys remember Mitch.
Yeah,
He had a
sure.
brand new Nissan something or other, or whatever it was, in the Datsun, whatever it was. Nice car. She gets in, I get in. I got a '72 Chevelle. I can't figure out where you put the key in the Datsun. I can't figure out how to turn on the lights. We sat in that car at the corner of 2nd and Chestnut, or 3rd and Chestnut. He had found a street parking spot for 20 minutes of me trying to figure out where to stick the key, which, pretty sure at that point, any chance I had with Rita Rudner was out the window. You can't figure out where to put the key. I was so embarrassed. I said, I got it, and I never figured it out. And I think I was like, this is my friend's car. I'll take you in my car. And I took her to the hotel, and I was like, I'm sorry. You're hilarious. Bye. It was just, it was.
Another great female comic that worked Philly a lot, Abby Stein. God bless her. She was so great. I got an Abby Stein story. Okay.
I was just thinking of her. I would have a mad crush on her, man.
Yeah, everybody did. She was a sweetheart. Abby Stein and I had to do AM Philadelphia with Liz Matt. And so we had to get up like early in the morning because we had to be there by like 8 o'clock. Okay, so Abby's in the Penn Center Inn, and I'm coming from home, and I'm wearing my suit, look good for TV. Abby dresses like she dresses on stage. She had this wild blonde hair, reddish blonde. She had big red lipsticks. She had a turquoise blouse with a yellow jacket with red slippers like from the Wizard of Oz, and leopard tight skin pants. So she looks like maybe she's got a different career than a comedian, if you know what I mean, like the oldest profession. So Abby and I are walking out of the hotel, going to get a cab, and I'm in my suit, and she's dressed like that, and a woman with a Bible under her arms walked up to Abby, went toe-to-toe with her, and said, God saw what you did last night, and walked away. And Abby said, did he see the first show or the second?
Awesome. Oh my God. We're getting close. It's just about 9:40, and I wanted to throw out a question. This has been kind of it's been just a very sad week for the Philly comedy community, because we lost a dear friend and comedy brother in Jeff Parami. And I was wondering from the folks who have worked with him, he actually was the headliner for my very first comedy show. So when I graduated from comedy school, he was our headliner. So he kind of holds a special place in my heart there. And I went to see him at the Borgata last year and had a great conversation with him, but I didn't get to work with him a lot. So I know some of you have some good Jeff Parami stories, and I'd like to just remember Jeff. So what do you remember about Jeff? What are some stories that you have?
Of course.
This is Jeff Parami before he was Fat Rat Bastard. Okay, it was Jeff, me, and Joe Netherwood, and I used to be real heavy. And Jeff was always heavy. I used to be 310 pounds. And Jeff, who knows what he was, way past that. And Jeff would always say to me, Tommy, I'm gaining weight, Tommy. Either I'm gaining weight or the holes in my belt are healing up. Great guy. Wonderful, warm, wonderful, funny man. What a wonderful guy. Just a wonderful guy.
I remember the first time I saw him was in the mid '80s, and he used to go on stage. We were working the same room. I didn't know who he was, and so I saw him when I walked in. I'm on stage, and I think I was in the middle, a feature act at that time, and he was just like going to do 5 or 10 minutes. It was like a guest spot. But here comes this guy in a big, large man in this big raisin outfit. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is going to suck, you know, and he blew the room away. And he was only doing it for about a year, year and a half, you know, but he stayed in character. But Jeff is an extremely funny man. You know, he's innately funny. He's got a funny heart and mind. And he'll say something on a whim, like, you know, some of the best. Robin would do that, or Chris Rock, you know. All of us would do that too, but he's just brilliant after a year. And then he started working on the Rat Bastard, the Fat Rat Bastard.
Fat Rat Bastard.
He did a little of that while he was in the costume too. I remember. He called somebody.
He was a California raisin.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It was.
And he'd go on to the Grapevine.
Marvin Gaye's heard it through the grapevine.
I'm sure Joey Callahan, that little prick, would have a couple of stories. Right, Joey?
He was, you know, what I wouldn't give to hear him scream out, "Callahan, you Irish prick," one more time. We were doing a show at the Friars Club for the Sunshine Foundation. It was with his buddy Ted. And we're driving up to New York. We're running late, of course. And Jeff's like, "Joey, after the show, we're going to go to Hoboken. World's greatest pancakes." I go, "Jeff, let's just do the show." We go to do the show. His buddy Ted is completely polluted from drinking. Jeff gets off the stage, and I see, like, the side of his face. I went, "Oh, no, something's the matter." And I go, "What's the matter?" He goes, he mumbles to me. I go, "Jeff, we got to get you to the hospital." His buddy Ted's in the front seat. I'm driving. Jeff's in the back. I'm driving white knuckles through the Lincoln Tunnel, terrified. And from the back seat, I hear, "Well, I guess pancakes are out."
Oh, Christ. I did a show with him at what was it called? Brown Thompson. Well, it was something in Hartford, Connecticut. What was that room in Hartford, Connecticut? What was it called?
The City Steam in Hartford, Connecticut.
City Steam. Yeah, and
they
John
changed the name. Booked it.
Yeah, and so Prammy and I took the train up from Trenton. He lived outside of Trenton, and coming back, and we're going into a snowstorm. So it's like the last train, and it's packed, and it's going like 20 miles an hour once we get south of maybe even like before New York. It's just going slow because it's snowing so hard. And he and I just started telling jokes, like jokes. And man, like it was like the people around us, I'm sure to this day, are like, I was on a train with people telling filthy, dirty jokes.
It's the best train ride they ever had, Chris.
Yeah, it was probably the most fun, but oh my God, I just remember like just going back and forth. And he knew like every single joke. So if I could remember one, he had like 6, you know, and he would just bam, 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 and tell the jokes, and he had that way. And it was one of those people that like, before he was funny, right? Before he was funny as a comic, he had the ability to hold people's attention. Yeah. He immediately had a magnetism to him, and he was the same way. Like I saw him, you know. He got on that train, and people immediately were okay. Even though it's a shitty trip, we may not make it south of New York. We all may be screwed looking for hotel rooms. People were laughing their asses off, having a fun time. Because Jeff is just that kind of guy. He was just that kind of guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's a neighborhood guy. He reminds you of a guy you grew up with. He was the oddball of all our friends, and that's who Jeff Prammy is, but he's Italian too. So he's got that Italianate. side to him, like coming from Brooklyn or Queens or wherever he's from originally. And he got the, hey, you know, that guy. But he was the funny one of those guys, you know, and he was always cracking, you know, and we all grew up with that guy. And Jeff reminded us all of those kind of characters. And he was that. And when he became a comic, he honed even that. It was a thing of beauty, actually.
Right. Yeah, he never lost being himself.
Right.
On stage or
Thank you.
at the
Perfect.
dice.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
People spend years trying to be natural on stage. You came to him.
Yeah, Joey, that's right. That's exactly it, right? Like when we talk to people that are starting out, you're kind of saying like, hey, you know, learn to become yourself on stage. He'll grow into it. But he was that guy who was just.
I'm a diabetic.
He was definitely that guy. He was had that personality that just people wanted to hang out with him and like him. He and I did a project, and I use that term very loosely, with Joy Little. That my wife has always been unbelievably supportive of everything I've done, and I remember showing her a tape of this, and she said, don't continue doing this. This is bad. This is really, really bad. And Jeff and I knew it. I think Joy did not know it immediately. It was a musical. And so I'm singing. Jeff is singing. So Joy is gone and Jeff is now gone. So I'm the last person with a tape of this. And so it is. I'm going to hold on to that, and you will never ever see it. Nobody will ever see it. That is what I am giving to those two. Maybe.
Well, that's not fair. We should see it.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you know what,
Chris?
If they're having the wake, right?
Yeah, Tuesday, exactly.
I'm going to slide it into the coffin. The last VHS
No, play it
tape.
in the video when you're walking in.
No, nobody will ever see this, because I want them to remember Jeff as the hilarious and wonderful person that he was. And this, when my wife saw it and looked at me and just went, no, don't do this. Don't do this. It was, and I remember Jeff and I at the rehearsal just sitting and singing, and it was just bad. It was just bad. I maybe someday I'll show you, but maybe I'll just let Jeff have that as a parting gift. It was, good Lord, it was horrible.
I think the thing about Jeff was it didn't take him long to hone who he is going to be. A few years, and he became that character and just became better and better. Yeah. About the 5th year in the business, because he was in the business for a long time, 25 years, I would say, almost 30. And after that 5 years, when he became Jeff, who we all know and love, he should have went to California, and he would have been a major success, just because of the
He did go to California.
That you said, Chris, that he is. You know, people just gravitate to him. And
right.
In California, that wouldn't have been missed, and all the comics would have liked him. So I see good things would have happened for him had he gone to California.
Jim, did you say he did go?
John Panette. John Panette is the same story.
He did go to California, Jim?
Yeah, he was in California for a short time. Pat Godwin had mentioned it in his tribute to Jeff on Facebook, that he and Pat had gone out together. They had the same agent who couldn't really get them anything. And then they came back. Both of them came back.
I also think he had 3 kids and a wife, and he just loved his family more than he loved comedy.
Yeah. That's something you can't discount, right? Like you can't, you have to have a certain willingness to like leave everything behind, or drag your entire family out with you, which I didn't think they were not going to do that. But no, he was. I mean, yeah. I mean, everybody has a story. I would say everybody has a story about Parami that they'll tell, and everybody has a story something they did with Parami that they will absolutely not tell.
That is so true. I actually have a lot of those.
I remember seeing Jeff at the is it the Casbah in Wildwood?
Oh yeah.
And I went with my parents. It was just me, my parents. They were up in years, and they wanted to go to bed at 9 o'clock. And I was not quite ready for bed, but my Aunt Peg was down there, and she was probably about 70, in her early 70s at the time. I reached out to Aunt Peg, and I said, let's go to a comedy show. So we went. He was our headliner. And I remember the one joke, and we laughed so hard. He says, last night I had the weirdest dream. I was dreaming about Aunt Jemima. I woke up, there was syrup all over the bed. And I know. All right, so that's probably crossing the line. But it was we just loved him. You guys, it is and I'm mindful of the need that you may have to run to the restroom because these shows run long. So I want to thank you guys all for joining us tonight and for sharing your stories. And
Thank you, Teresa.
I wish it could be face to face. There will be some kind of reunion at the end of these shows when the world opens up again and we can actually go places together. So you'll all get an invitation to come to that. And I'm going to wrap up with a little slideshow about our friend Jeff. And audience, if you want to hang out, you can. If not, you are feel free to go. But I just wanted to I think we're all just trying to find some closure with this. So this was kind of helpful for me to go through and gather some pictures of Jeff. I'll
Teresa, can I just add before you start that? I just want to ask Joey. So Joey, are they doing anything like? Is there any kind of fund or anything? I saw some stuff posted while we have all the comics here, people who may have known Jeff watching. They're doing the Tuesday night is what, a viewing.
The Tuesday night is a viewing, and I have it on my Facebook. If anybody needs it, they're having a mass Wednesday at 11. I was over there today. I saw Debbie and his daughter Kelly, who is pregnant. She's due in August. The whole family's just absolutely heartbroken. They've got, it's a shame he's dead because they had more food than they know what to do with it. They're thinking about actually renting another freezer just to store the food that people are dropping off. So if you're going to give them anything, don't give them food. Don't give them flowers because they have more than enough flowers in that house.
Okay.
I don't know of any GoFundMe, but honestly, they didn't seem like they needed anything other than they just wanted their husband and father back, really, sadly enough.
Right. And I think I mentioned this on your Facebook page, but it was like, because this is not the first time that Jeff had gone into the hospital.
Nope.
And I think everybody assumed, he'll be back. We'll yell at him because we all yelled at him about taking care of himself. We'll like, oh, he'll be back, and we'll yell at him again, and he'll go, oh yeah, this time I'll do it. And this, it was, I as I mentioned on Joey's Facebook page, I hadn't been checking Facebook very much except trying to find Jeff updates, and it was so disheartening to see that he had passed away. Because like I said, you just assumed, oh, he's Jeff, he'll bounce back, he'll be back. And
Barney,
anyway.
did you know Jeff?
No, there was one guy, I can't remember if he played any one of my clubs or not. He may have, but I don't distinctly remember him. No.
Barney, wouldn't it have been great if you would have said, I didn't like him? Wouldn't that be great? I didn't care for him. I know, I just didn't care for him.
From what I hear, terrific guy. I wish I did.
He was a mensch. He was.
I wish I did know.
Guy. Yeah, good guy. All right, Teresa. Sorry, I just wanted to see if there's anything.
Chris, you always save me from myself. You always do, man. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much. We'll wrap up with the slideshow, and then we'll go off into.
I think Mike Egan still thinks he's on. I think he's answering.
You know what? He's in Facebook Live. Dawn was commenting that he's in Facebook Live. So, let me do this. Share screen.
Thank you, Teresa.
Night, Teresa.
Thank
Thank you so much. Love you
Will
all.
you mind, please, when I die?
I will.
Yeah,
Dawn, thank you for your help tonight.
You're welcome. Talk to you later.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Dawn.
guys. You guys are all
Thank you,
wonderful.
Chris. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.